So welcome everybody. I have a very special guest here with me, Steven Kokker. Steve is a very good friend of mine. He's a body worker. He is a tea ceremony master, and I know Steve for many, many years, and I had a chance and privilege to see his healing arts in action, how much he helps other people. And I know, Steve, your journey was quite a long journey to become healing therapist or a body worker. And in this invitation, I'm very curious about your view on healing arts, on touch, body work. So let's have a little conversation about it.
Sure. Let's just dive in.
Yeah, cool.
But
So tell me, maybe where did you start for the first time? Where did you know that actually healing arts, the body work, the touch is something that calls your heart, something that you want to engage and bring into your life? What was the moment, aha moment, that you felt, okay, this is where I want to go in my life. This is what I want to do. This is my passion.
mm, well, like so many things, I think for a lot of people, we kind of stumble into the things that we're really meant to do, and for me, it was a bit of a stumbling into process, not so much of a conscious. I want to do this specific thing, and I will do these 7 steps to become it. It was more. I was kind of, I'm naturally quite a sensual person, meaning I quite like touch and like hugging, cuddling, and this kind of thing. But it was actually with a friend of mine in the 1990s, and he was going through a stage where he wasn't sure what he wanted to do in his life. And I suggested to him, because he was very naturally talented at touch and massage, that he actually study massage. And so I was really encouraging him, not for a moment thinking of myself to actually study this, but he said, all right, I found one person to teach me, but I'll only do it if you come and do it with me. And I was like, what? But because of that, and we had this like intense 6-week course with this, that to kind of changed the direction for me. Like I really realized how much I absolutely loved the idea of massage, touch, bodywork. I didn't have too much of a deep understanding, I think, of the whole consequences of and potential healing power of touch at that point. But that started me on this journey. I from then just took for years and years various courses, but always in my mind thinking, oh, but this is just a hobby. It's just to be able to communicate better with my friends, or to be able to offer this to friends and family and loved one. And so I continued for years like this, always thinking like, no, but I could never do this professionally. No, it's just a hobby. I'm not ready. And then, meeting you already something like 10, 12 years ago, probably, and starting a series of courses with you as well. And then I think for me, it was just a very slow process. I'm a bit slow. I take time to figure things out, I guess, to kind of step into this as a way of thinking of this can be a way of life. This can be quote unquote a profession, and something to take seriously, but also something that becomes a way of life. So yeah, I think many people kind of have this experience of just sort of suddenly finding themselves in the place that they were meant to be. It's really beautiful on one hand, but also a little bit funny how blind we can be to some of the signs and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of that's my journey. So, and I think I only really stepped up into being, let's say, a professional body worker something like 5 years or so ago, versus 25 years of courses and studying and this kind of thing. But it took me a long time to think, to get over thinking that I'm not ready enough or something like this. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And like I love the title of this conversation, because I notice that many students in my classes are asking themselves and are, what is the life purpose? And they come for the courses. Maybe they did an office job or some other job, and they come for the courses to learn a new skill, to become breath worker, body worker. And I am privileged myself to find my life purpose through healing arts, through body work. And I like to invite other people like yourself who find it to find maybe what are the ways, what are the ways of other people, what were the steps of finding that life purpose, because I know how tremendously important this for other people, and I just want to lay down the path ahead. What
Mm,
might be steps to really implement the skills we have, implement with skills we learn, and what might be obstacles that can be on the way for really finding the life purpose, life passion, and life joy
mm,
from healing arts, from doing the touch work, body work,
mm.
and working with other people basically in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
What is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, there are different ways to approach that question. There's some very practical ways, but I think it's helpful to zoom out and think more of the general ways in which we block ourselves from expression in general and from stepping into this life. For example, as I say, I stumbled into this, but like blocking me on the way, well, on one hand, also it's possible to say that everything takes its own time, and it's okay if things take its time, and it might take somebody 10 or 20 years to step into a solid being. But what happens in that process is actually more of like a maturation process that can be nourished a little bit more. So for example, for me to be ready to feel that I can say, okay, I'm ready or ready enough or good enough for this situation, or to have a certain kind of self-confidence to step forward, for example, that wasn't so much to do with specifically bodywork as a profession. That had to do with me and my journey. So, I think all roads begin from work with the self. So it's knowing the self. It's nourishing a certain aspect of silence within the self, of a relationship with the self, because when one gets more close to oneself, like nourishing intimacy with oneself before you nourish intimacy with other people, then you just have these kind of realizations or understandings, or have a greater sense of body wisdom, meaning you can kind of read the impulses of what's going on in your own system first, and know how to nourish that, so that this process might actually become a little bit quicker. So you have a problem or an issue or block with feeling I'm not good enough, I'm not ready enough. There are ways to work with that, and body work is one way, but like it's working on the self as well as at the same time as stepping towards, for example, studying or a career
Mhm,
process.
mhm, mhm.
So and the way to work on oneself is like it's massive, and there are so many different ways, but it's like, how can I listen to myself and know myself a little bit more intimately? I think that's the foundation upon which all of that, and then after that becomes more sort of, okay, what courses do I take, where do I want to go, and this kind of thing. So I think it all begins with the intimacy we have with ourselves.
Wow,
and
it's
and
great.
I know that for you, your journey also was like somewhat parallel, in that you came from a job or a career that you weren't 100% satisfied with, and I'm not quite sure like that transition, like how for you massage or body work became something that was a little bit of an aha moment for you. I don't know
Mm,
if you want to share it at
mm.
this
Yeah, I really loved your sharing that, especially the end of your sharing,
point.
that it all starts with the intimacy within ourselves. I really resonate with it. And while you asked me about my way, my journey was also the aha moment was it took me a while, the aha moment, like this is it. But I think there was one particular event in my life in 2010 where I already been body worker like hobbystically for fun. But there was a aha moment where I was during one of the meditations, and there was this deep inside, this inner voice that was telling me your path is a body work. And I don't know where this voice was coming from, but I was always trusting because it was a very powerful message. And that was really indicator that helped me construct my life around body work. I knew this is going to be my passion, my mission, my vision, and everything around that was just falling into the pieces. I was following bodywork teachers. I was for many years following my path and directing my life into places where I could find places where I could practice and offer this for others, where I could get better. And that maturity took many years before I really realized, like, yes, this is it. But there's something else you also mentioned that is very interesting, that inner voice that's saying, whenever I'm ready. And this can be tricky one, because sometimes we have this inner judge, and this inner judge is leading to perfection. And I think healing arts is we always learning. We keep on learning. I don't think in healing arts we can aim to that point that we can aim perfection, because it's such a the human being is such a vast subject that for me there's never perfection. There's always ways to learn, so that inner judge can really be an obstacle for many people going into the healing arts, that can make them really like step back from that fully engaging that mission, that they might feel like, okay, I'm not ready, I'm not really ready, I'm not good enough, maybe. And for me, this was a breakthrough, and I realized from some of my teachers that whatever I know, I am one step ahead from somebody else. And of course, there will be people who know more than me, anatomy, physiology, or other techniques. But in essence, I still can teach what I know, and I can still
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
in individual session many people, because I already been studying a lot. And so those voices can be really, how we can let go of this voice. How did you manage with this inner judge? Maybe it wasn't present in your life, but maybe it was. I'm just curious how you managed that part, because I think it's quite crucial piece in really letting
Mhm.
yourself
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this direction.
Yeah, I guess for me, maybe two things, and I can't. And I must say, I've let it go in most areas of my life now, which is like really a wonderful thing to be able to say, because it's that voice has been extremely harsh and critical all my life, and even at some point when I understood that actually it doesn't make any logical sense as well. Like, I know it's irrational, but still this is here, and this is a super common point, I think. But one is to really realize, not just with the brain, because the brain can understand, any combination of words. We have this illusion of understanding something, but like a deeper understanding of really getting it. That, for example, all right, I'm not, to rephrase it, if there's like, the brain will just generate, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough. Well, break it down. First of all, what does that actually mean? Probably what I really mean is that I don't feel like I am the absolute best version of this self that I could be at this moment, and therefore will not be of use to this person, or will be judged or seen as the horrible fake that I am, or whatever the fear is. Actually, like, break it down really, and then to see how that's sort of so untrue. Like, number one, like, I'm not going to be judged because I forgot to use my elbow in this move, and really I should be using my elbow and not just my knuckles, or the person afterwards is not going to have a huge breakdown because of this. So be a little bit confront the illogical thinking behind it. Number two, to realize always that um, because I am here, for example, in this situation, taking this course, doing this thing, having somebody coming up to me and wanting a massage or something, it already indicates that I am ready enough / good enough for this moment in this situation. Like, the fact that I'm here. Like, would it be better for this person to say, sorry, no, I will not do that, because I'm not where I will be in 14 years from now. So, should we hide ourselves and like not step forward? Whether it's like, my singing voice or whatever will not be as good as it will be after 12 more years of practice. Shall I just never open my mouth until then? No, you're good enough for this moment. and that often helped me. Like when they're doing tea ceremonies, I would also think I'm not ready enough. I don't have enough experience. Da, da, da. Well, there are 14 people here, and like I'm obviously good enough for this situation, you know. And so to see that as a process. And maybe the last thing is that when I kind of clued in and realized, and this only through a lot of practice, that so if I think good enough, ready enough, I'm thinking unilaterally that it's sort of some kind of fixed thing in me, for example, talent or a technique or something, that I am going to put on to somebody else or do to somebody else. There's this fixed thing that's maybe broken or not good enough or something that I will just do, but or show or something. But that's absolutely untrue. I mean, when we're speaking about the healing arts and the bodywork profession, this is an interaction. It's a dialogue. It's a dance. It's a movement that's connected with somebody else. So that also releases my hold on, like, oh, I don't know this one technique, or where does this muscle attach to, or whatever it is, that some kind of fixed knowledge or something in me. I don't just dump it onto somebody in a way like the least experienced body workers will be doing that, or we've all felt a kind of mechanical massage that might, you know, have its use sometimes, and especially in physiotherapy, for example. But if there's not a dialogue happening, a kind of sensing, listening, and response, then it's not a proper, you know, or healing deep bodywork session. So in a way, that releases also my hold on, like, oh, there are these things I don't know, and focus more on, yes, but am I able to listen and be in this moment again, work with the self, like, do I do any meditative practices with myself, have I worked on my own shit, and this kind of stuff. All that helps to know that, aha, so maybe I'm not the best at this particular technique or whatever, or I could have done other things, but I was really there with this person at this moment. And that's way, you know, much more important, I think, for a person, a body, an organism, to feel that you have been seen, listened to, and responded to, more than, you know, something else. So those things that I kind of realized and repeat to myself help that little voice get smaller and smaller, that will tell me I'm not ready for this.
Fantastic, fantastic. I love what you said about listening and being with the client, being with someone, and it's much more important the technique sometimes, and how much the person can benefit from it. I think this is so tremendously important in the healing arts, in any modality that brings work with other people. Um, Wow, yeah, totally. And I'm thinking also, like, what do you think of any other qualities or personality character structures for somebody to be fulfilled and to become a practitioner of any modality working with people? What do you think? What skills are important in this
Hmm.
journey?
Hmm. Well, aside from, let's say, practical technical skills of actually studying like that, I will almost I shouldn't just assume that it's like understood, but because especially in 2022, everybody has seen this kind of phenomenon of, like, people go to a weekend course or a retreat and then start teaching the thing the next weekend,
Yeah,
and they're suddenly whatever master of tea ceremony or calligraphy or some kind of breath work or something like this. It happens a lot. So yeah, actually doing the groundwork is a kind of an of course, and even that takes a lot of willpower and determination. But yeah, I guess I go back to the points I made before about listening. You know, I think one of the things that kind of if I were to kind of give some practical advices to body workers, actually, I think like a few years ago, my mind would have said, like, oh, well, you know, do very practical, almost semi-obvious things. But now it's like less obvious things, I think, that I would recommend. Like, for example, get used to, throughout the day, noticing some small details in your environment. You know, whether it's a pattern in the carpet, or the way the light falls upon snow on the ground, if you have a few moments here and there, just like a few seconds of tuning in to small details around you. And why, or what does that have to do with bodywork? But it sort of fine tunes our sensibilities of where we are. So if we want to, it's nice to say, to listen deeply to somebody and respond to them. In order to do that, we have to, pick up these frequencies. And sometimes the frequencies or signals that a client or a friend comes to us with are very, very subtle. To me, some of the most heavenly, sacred moments in a bodywork session, and it pretty much in every session really, is like where, sometimes I mostly have my eyes closed, but if I open my eyes and see very tiny little unconscious reactions of the body, whether it's like maybe a muscle twitch or a little spasm, or the breath being contracted suddenly, or the breath relaxing suddenly, these tiny little details in the way like skin moves, and the hair, how the hair, the shadow from the hair and the light or whatever, they kind of like, they're not only really for me transcendently beautiful moments, but they keep me anchored into that kind of receptive space, as opposed to, because I've certainly spent years in a less receptive space where it's in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've done the right shoulder, next is the left shoulder, okay, and then I'll do the biceps, and kind of do that. You need to go through that for several years until that just becomes muscle memory. But so yeah, it's in a way like a non-direct answer to your question. But for example, one thing would be to fine tune ourselves to our environment a little bit, because that will impact your body work. Being practicing listening better in general. Most people aren't great listeners, and we're not trained to listen and pick up on, let's say, body language cues, as opposed to the content of what somebody is saying. That also fine tunes you. Or what I mentioned in the tea ceremony this morning, for example, to not, we walk through life always focusing on the things that are happening, like somebody running through a room or the objects in a room. We walk into a space and we focus on the details. It's the way our senses are made up. But the real magic actually happens in the space itself, the empty space between objects, the pauses in between actions, to kind of like shift the focus. It's difficult to explain how, but to kind of shift the focus from all these things and the people and what they're saying and doing to the space around us. These kinds of little like fine tweaking. It comes out in bodywork. It comes out in one's ability to respond to the moment. So yeah.
Great. Fantastic. I love it. I love all these qualities. I think listening, being with somebody, what you mentioned, I think practicing meditation and that presence, that is so crucial to be with somebody else. Those are really fantastic qualities. So I'm very happy to share this with you, because many people I know, they really would love to become good body workers. They would like to find their life purpose by helping others, by supporting others. And I think you gave so much more clues. So just summarizing, maybe if somebody would ask you like some 3 points from your own life that really help you to overcome adversity and become finding life purpose, what would you tell that person, like a 3 steps to move forward?
Every time I hear that kind of thing, the old voice is like, "Oh my God, there are 3 things, and I must answer this correctly. I can't say 2,
Yeah,
and
you
then
can say
4 is too
5
much."
or
Like,
7.
yeah. Well, one thing that came to mind, that maybe to summarize a bit of what I was saying before, there's a famous quote where somebody was asked, a famous painter was asked, "How do you paint so magnificent, such magnificent pictures?" And the answer was, it's simple, just perfect yourself and then paint naturally. it's really worth remembering this one quote, actually. Uh, Although actually it has the word perfect, so that can already get some people a little bit nervous. But basically, work on yourself and then paint naturally. So like when we again focus on like becoming a better person in general, like am I staying as healthy as I can? Do I have like right mind? Do I try to yeah work on myself and investigate my own impulses or something like this? The more I do that, the better I will be in whatever I choose to do, whether it's painting or body work or anything. So like I can't emphasize this enough, actually. So I would say something like that. And I forget what the three things of but maybe patience with oneself as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It seems like I'm underlining a lot of like relationship with the self here. Actually, it's funny. There can be an entirely different additional conversation after this layer about then what are some practical steps to do. But I think those are easier to find out in the world, and courses to take, and that's like absolutely engage in the profession as deeply as you can through online course interaction, practice with a friend, practice with people, even if you think you're not very good. It's through practice. I'm constantly thanking all of the hundreds of bodies that sort of like offered themselves up to me to be in a way practiced on, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. But this relationship with the self always needs to be nourished in parallel, and having compassion / patience for the self is like easier said than done. But that's I would say that's a big one, like compassion for, let's say, not being absolutely flawless and perfect, or for screwing up a bit, or for being a bit in one's head at one time, or for so that's another one.
Perfect. All right. So I love it. I love it. This I think the perfection, I think I would for me I would translate into self growth, self development, continuous growth, continuous learning who I am, and continuously learning how I can bring myself up into the world in my best possible ways, with my shadow, with my light, with everything I am. And that self-compassion that you mentioned at the end is it's okay, wherever we are, it is okay, without comparison to anybody else, because it's our own journey, it's our own unique ways of expressing ourselves through touch, through breath work or healing arts, any other ways that we might find gifts. Wow, fantastic.
Mm.
Anything else you want to add, Steve, or we can slowly wrap it up? I don't see any questions from the public, but I think we had quite a good flow, and I think there was a lot of important information in
Yeah,
this talk,
yeah.
and clues for anybody who would like to find their life purpose through healing arts.
Yeah, I think it felt very, very organic. It's a conversation that can be dove into, I think, way more deeply, of course. And if there's another forum in which this becomes interesting for people who are studying in your institute, for example, we can definitely plunge deeper. But yeah, I think for now that feels very good. And we can always encourage, if anybody has questions afterwards, as they watch this afterwards sometime, to write them in, or send comments in the Facebook page, I guess, that it'll be on, and like happy to respond. So yeah.
Right.
But
Thank you, Steve, for this amazing talk.
yeah, and thank you. You've been a real source of inspiration, and a real North Star towards which I have loved to walk in these last 10, 12 years or so. And thank you for opening up all these opportunities to assist at some of your courses in Estonia and in Bali. And I've really been very touched by your own dedication, by your own sensitivity, by your own authenticity in the way that you reach out and almost redefine teaching, because like, as again, this unilateral, like I have information stuck in here and I shall now just like give it out all to you. You make it a very dynamic, interactive process, which I think, whether you say it or not, I hope people pick up that, wow, this is actually also like body work. It's not just sort of unilaterally doing something to somebody. It's a process. It's a dialogue, and even your courses, the way you set them up, is very much this kind of like a dance, like a dialogue. So even though I haven't liked all of your 1990s Polish techno music, but you know, I can live.
Yeah,
But thank you.
You can come over this Sunday. I will be facilitating ecstatic dance / cacao ceremony in Brasov in Romania. So come on over and we will celebrate.
Okay, and
Thank you, Steve.
I'll learn to love the techno. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, for the
Thanks.
conversation. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us, and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.